Stalin receives some reassurance. On August 10, 1942, Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, lands in Moscow aboard his personal plane. His traveling companion is an American special envoy, Averell Harriman, the powerful businessman who coordinates Allied aid. This aid will prove decisive. 15,000 planes, 140,000 trucks, millions of tons of fuel and supplies. Molotov, Stalin's Minister of Foreign Affairs, greets the two men with the Internationale, the Soviet anthem of the time. The two representatives of the capitalist world listen to the revolutionary chant without the slightest reaction. Churchill states, "If Hitler invaded hell, I would side with the devil." Churchill writes in his memoirs, "I pondered on my mission to the sullen, sinister Bolshevik state that I had once so hard tried to strangle at its birth, which I had regarded as the mortal foe to civilized freedom. A magnificent Packard limousine drives them to the Kremlin, where Stalin awaits them. Everyone is all smiles. The Americans and the British need Stalin. They know that supplies won't be enough. They need manpower. The sacrifice of Russian troops by the millions will enable them to destroy the Nazi beast. In addition to American aid, Stalin wants to urgently open a second front, meaning an Allied landing in the West to divide German forces. Hitler is worried about the possibility of an Allied landing. He needs to finish off quickly in the East. He needs to put an end to Stalin. He needs to put an end to Stalingrad. The Stukas, the German dive bombers, complete the destruction of what once was the USSR's model city. General Paulus launches his 6th Army to attack Stalingrad. The Germans reach the ravines, the city's natural first line of defense. The Russians resist with great violence. Stalin declares, "If we surrender Stalingrad, the south of the country will be cut off from the center. We would lose our main waterway, and soon our oil too." Stalin's rise to power began here, a quarter of a century earlier. This city, at the strategic intersection between Baku and Moscow, was known at the time as Tsaritsyn. 1918, the territory controlled by the Reds, Bolshevik communists, is attacked by the Whites, the Tsarist army. Civil war breaks out. Stalin already has a role in history's first communist government. At the head of this government is Lenin, who appreciates Stalin's determination. Stalin is commissar for food supplies. He travels to Tsaritsyn to find wheat for the country's hungry capital. Stalin steals all the grain reserves, sparking off rebellions and famines. Lenin has also put Stalin in charge of watching over the man who defends these rich agricultural lands. Trotsky, the powerful People's Commissar for War, has become too independent. Trotsky, in order to save the threatened city of Tsaritsyn, puts former officers from the Tsar's army in charge of his troops. These men are more competent leaders. Stalin defies Trotsky. He accuses Trotsky's officers of colluding with the whites and decides to eliminate them. So he gathers them on barges and sinks the boats in the middle of the Volga. Stalin turns into a warlord, destroying villages, executing populations, and spreading terror. He makes awkward attempts to get involved in strategy, but Trotsky, just as violent but more skilled, sets things straight. This doesn't stop Stalin from proclaiming himself the conqueror of Tsaritsyn and donning this military dress, which he will wear from now on. He is present on every Civil War front. 1919. The Reds face new enemies. French, American, British, and Japanese have all come to support the whites. But after the Great War and its massive death toll, Allied support remains limited. Their primary goal is to stop the spread of communism. Because Trotsky wants to export the revolution. He is counting on workers rising up across Europe. He attacks Poland, which has just acquired its independence. The Poles, with French support, resist the Reds' assault. Stalin, sent as backup, doesn't support Trotsky. 40,000 Bolshevik soldiers are captured. In 1920, despite his failure in Warsaw, Trotsky still embodies war communism, the Red Army's absolute priority. Trotsky succeeds in keeping Stalin away from military affairs, even though he is still in the government. People question Stalin's methods and wonder what is behind those small, squinty eyes, even when he smiles. Helped by his Georgian accomplices, Stalin tames the separatists with his iron hand, just like he did in Baku, in Azerbaijan. The local communists are forced to celebrate the end of their independence to the tune of the Internationale, played on the tar, a popular Caucasian instrument. Stalin also reigns in Armenia and Georgia, his homeland. When he goes home to visit his mother, she asks, "Tell me, my son, you don't have the Tsar's blood on your hands, do you?" Stalin swears that he had no part in the assassination of Nicholas II and his family 3 years earlier. Nicholas II, captured by the Bolsheviks, along with his heir, the Tsarevich, the Empress, and their 4 daughters, were moved from location to location throughout the Civil War. They ended up in this house on the Siberian border, where they were executed. Who gave the order to shoot? Who really gives the orders in this regime?